Hi, Darla.
Hi, Irene.
Welcome to this talk on your journey. You will do
Yeah.
most of the talking today.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to first start off with is you have been on some panels, some alumni panels for Smart Body, Smart Mind. So
Yes.
some of my audience who've been around for about a year or so have heard maybe chunks of your journey.
Yeah.
And after our last alumni panel, I said, hey, Darla, I think it'd be great if we could just document as much as we can your story from start to here to where you are to where you were,
Yeah.
because it's a compelling story. I will say that you have defied medical odds. I think it's safe to say.
That is accurate. Yes. Very accurate.
So to start, just introduce yourself. Where are you? What do you do? What are you doing now in your life? And then we'll kind of do a little memory lane trip. How's that sound?
Okay. Good. That's great. So, obviously, you've already said my name is Darla. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I'm about 3 hours south of where Irene lives. I'm
Mhm.
in the Seattle area. Um, it's cold here today, so I'm wearing a jacket,
Yeah,
believe it
me
or not.
too.
It's been 80s in the 80s for the last
I
like
know.
month, and today it's like barely 70. So anyway, I like living here. What has happened? Where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I told you that um, in the spring, I took a course for art therapy as an art therapy practitioner. I completed that.
Yes.
And in the fall, when school starts, there's a little private school in Enumclaw here. I'm going to be working with the kids for an hour a week doing that. I'm super excited about that.
So good.
The thing that's really cool to me, I originally started taking that course because Seth had mentioned how there's some things you can't put into words,
Yes.
but you can do it with art. And he was talking about his music journey. For
Mm.
me, photography is a big one, but I like crafts. I like all kinds of art. I like music. I like it all. I can't
Yeah.
think of any art form that I don't like. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to take this course just to see what I can, pull out of myself. And as I was doing it, I realized how much that overlaps with what we do in Smart Body, Smart Mind. There's so many principles.
Yeah.
And I just got to thinking, wow, they had one specific section that was for kids.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, if a kid could learn this when they're young, how much impact would it make? So I started with my grandkids. I did
Yeah.
a little bit of art therapy on them.
Super.
And I was amazed to find out it took about 4 weeks. I have twin granddaughters that are
Oh.
12, and Lorelai was she was withdrawing. And they've
Mm.
always been very much like they know no strangers,
Yeah.
just friends they haven't met yet. They
Yeah.
were like that. I'm not like that. They are. But anyway, so I was like, something's wrong. But she wouldn't talk. She wouldn't
Mm.
tell anybody what was going on. She just was very withdrawn. So I'm just going to try this with her. And within about 4 weeks, we found out there was something going on at school, and
Mm.
she was able to work through it. And now she's back to herself.
That's so
So
great.
when I met this teacher at church,
Yeah.
um, she was, it just came to me. I need to do this. I need to share this with another small group of kids that I don't know and
Mm.
give them a foundation that they can work with. Because honestly, I wanted to do your course, your bigger course, the
Yeah.
scientific one,
Yeah.
but it's like you have to be there every time, and my body's still unpredictable, and it was like I can't commit
Hmm.
that much time on a regular basis at this point, but this
Yeah.
thing I can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is part of why Smart Body, Smart Mind has worked so well for me, because I can do it in my own time. When I have the energy, I can do it, and I can get online and I can, find out, okay, I want to do this part now and this part here. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing I discovered from the very, very beginning was doing it in sequence really matters.
Yeah.
The sequence matters.
Yeah. It
And
does.
so every time you offer it, I go through the whole thing all over again. And I learn something new every time. And sometimes I can't tell what's changing in me until a month or
Yeah.
two afterwards, but every single time there's something inside that changes every time. So I will do it as long as it's available for the rest of my life because I don't think, I mean, even when you heal your past wounds, you get present wounds. So
You
there's
do.
never, the body's always changing. I'm getting older, I'm not getting younger, so that makes changes of its own. There's just
So
a
speaking
lot.
of age, I mean, you just said I knew you had grandkids. I didn't realize they were 12.
Yeah. Oh, I have older ones. My oldest one's 21.
Oh my goodness. So
Yeah.
may I ask, how old are you right now in 2024?
I'm 64 years old.
Okay. So I wanted to say,
Yeah.
ask that, not because age matters, but because we have
Yeah.
lots of people that are like, it's too late for me. There's
Mm-mm.
no way I can heal this. And I know that is not true.
No. Yeah.
And I want to go back to your story and what brought you to Smart Body, Smart Mind, but I want to also highlight how cool it is that at age 64, when you're technically supposed to be retired, I don't think our type ever retire though. I think we're always doing something.
No, those of
You
us
know,
who really care about other people, you can't ever just not do
no,
something.
but the fact that you are now going to be in a school
Yeah.
working with little people
Yeah.
with art therapy,
Yeah.
you've trained in that, you have a nervous system perspective. I'm like, you can't see it, but I'm like smiling on the inside because that's how we have so many teachers
Yeah.
that come through this work and they say, Irene, how can you get this into schools? And this is how we get this into schools. It's each person
Yeah.
finding a way in, or the current teachers bringing this information to the students, and then the students and the other teachers seeing
Yeah.
how much good work you do with them. And then people get interested and they ask questions, and then more people get on board.
Right. And the teacher actually told me, because I just gave her a brief overview of what art therapy is about.
Yeah.
Mainly, it goes on the same principle that Smart Body, Smart Mind does. Like you're always telling us that you go at your own pace, and
Mhm.
it's self-exploratory. It's not
Mhm.
like I'm not going to go in there and say you have to make this, 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 and
Yeah.
this. I'm going to go in there and say this is what we're going to do. You do it your way.
Yeah.
And we do have a timeline, can't avoid that in schools.
Of
That's the way
course.
that is. But there's so much that overlaps. Was telling the teacher, I said, so it helps kids learn how to process their emotions because it's the act of being creative, which I love the little post that Seth did when he was playing at your meal
Oh yeah.
a while back when you guys were on vacation.
Yeah,
It
I
was
forget what that was. He was doing something funny.
Yeah, he
I'll
was.
have
It
to
was hysterical, but it was like, see, this is what we should never lose that playfulness.
Yeah.
I mean, people tell me I look young and I'm a young grandma and I am, but it's because I have that. I
Yeah.
have that playfulness.
Play.
I'm not one of those I'm a hands-on grandma. I play with them. We
Yeah,
do stuff. I'm not a
totally.
person that just sits and watches them do whatever they're gonna do. I'm more like, hey, let's go swimming, and I swim with them. I taught
Yeah.
them, helped teach them to swim. They took swimming lessons, but I helped teach them other things
Yeah.
like, doing somersaults underwater and
So
stuff like
fun.
that. So yeah, I think your attitude makes a really big difference. And even in this healing process with Smart
Mhm.
Body, Smart Mind, I have met Leora
Mm.
LeBeuf.
Yes,
So
another one of our
yeah,
alum. We did a
yeah,
talk, so we can link that near here.
yes, she's fun. We're
Yeah.
just having a great time because we
Good.
both have syringomyelia, and there's not a lot of people who have that. So we have compared notes, and we talk about, how this has impacted our lives. And the big difference between her and I is she was born with it, and mine's
Yes.
from a traumatic accident.
Let's talk about that accident.
Yeah,
You ready to, let's dive in.
that's where it started.
So yeah, take everybody listening and watching to this journey that started with this accident. What was it? When was it? What happened? And we'll go from there.
Okay, so December 30, 2010, I had been working for a investment company. I was a business office manager. I had went into town to get the mail. At this point, I wish I would have said that I was going for lunch, but I literally was going to get the mail and I got T-boned.
Okay.
And it wasn't really that, didn't seem like it was that bad of an accident. I mean, yes, it did damage to my car, but part of what damaged me so bad was at the moment there was a car coming toward me and there was one coming from the side, and I had to choose, do I want to get hit from the side or do I want to get hit head on? There was no way out.
Right.
And so I braced. I put my hands on the steering wheel and I braced myself, and I thought I'm going to gun it because I think I got better chances,
Yeah.
but it obviously didn't work. She hit
Right.
the passenger side of my vehicle.
Okay.
And of course that threw me this way and back. And so I have a lot of damage on this right side.
Mm-hmm.
It tore stuff all over here. My shoulder, I still cannot sleep on this shoulder for more
Okay.
than a couple of moments. Um, it tore this sheath around the spinal cord, but
Yes.
it was over almost a year and a half before we found that, because x-rays don't show that. You have to have an
Yeah.
MRI to be able to
Right.
see in that deep.
Right.
So I just wasn't getting better. And I was doing everything they told me to do. They could tell my neck had a lot of damage. That was very obvious on the x-ray.
Right.
And so
Can I ask, Darla, when you said you weren't getting better, just what were some of the symptoms? Like, I'm going to assume pain.
yeah, that's there, still
Yeah.
there.
Yep. Yep.
That doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Some of the symptoms that were odd, and this is from the syringomyelia, I would get hot from here up, which they
Oh,
say that syringomyelia, where the tear is, because it's where the tear is, it fills with spinal fluid. And
yeah.
they say that it's supposed to be, all your symptoms are from that down, but I'm I'm a part of 3 different syringomyelia support groups, and there's a whole lot that neurologists and neurosurgeons, all that stuff, they don't know about this
Right.
condition. They just
Right.
don't know. Um, anyway, for me, that was the first thing that was like weird, because I would just get hot from here up.
Right.
And hot flashes, because I was 50 when it
Yeah.
happened. So
Yeah.
I'm right in the where you would
Yeah.
be having menopause,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
first instinct, and everybody thought, oh, you're fine, you're just having hot
Hot
flashes, but
flashes.
hot flashes actually aren't really like that. Because I've
Yeah.
actually had hot flashes, and first you feel like you're freezing to death, and then you
Right.
feel like you're going to burn up. It's not the same, because
Right.
this would just be like a hot rush that would go through and then be
Okay.
done.
Okay.
It's not like a hot flash. It's entirely different. So I
Interesting.
had that. I couldn't sleep on either side because of
Right.
all the damage to my neck. So if I laid
Mm-hmm.
on the left, it would pull it. If I laid on the right, it would be on the shoulder. That's still that way. They were never
Okay.
able to resolve that.
Okay.
Um, I went through L&I. The
What's
problem
that?
with that
L
was labor
L&I
and
and
industries.
okay.
Labor and industries was part of
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And because that was not found immediately, they never acknowledged the tear in the
In your
syrinx.
spine.
Yeah, they never acknowledged that. And so that's part of why I just couldn't get better. And it
Mhm.
got to the point where I was laying on the floor at work, moaning and groaning, and whenever nobody was around. Well, my boss came in one day and saw me doing that. And she says, Darla, what is going on? And I was, just trying to tell, well, because I was still trying to work. I
Yeah.
mean, I was doing physical therapy. I was doing chiropractic work. I was doing everything they had me do. I was taking all the drugs that they wanted me to take. We were
Yeah.
doing the blockers. I did steroids. I did, I can't
Everything.
even remember everything. I mean, I have a packet that's this thick of all the different things
Wow.
that just the different treatments that they tried on me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tried acupuncture. That one
Yeah.
for me did not help at all. Um, just I can't, there's so much. I did so many different things, and doctors just kept saying, there's nothing wrong with you, because their tests wouldn't
See that.
show it. Yeah, they couldn't see it. And then when that happened with my boss, I was also starting to make little small mistakes because the pain was just getting worse and worse, not
Mm-hmm.
better.
Mm-hmm.
And I now know it's because of the syrinx, the traumatic kind. It's difficult for me to sit for a long period of time. My max is about 2 hours. And then it's kind of how it feels is like if you've ever been stung by a wasp, it's like
Yeah.
having a whole nest of them on your back
Oh man.
and being punched so hard that you can't breathe. It literally knocks the breath out of you. Well, because of the nerve back there, it also rotates my ribs because I have a lot of muscle spasms. It creates a very intense muscle spasms. It's also hard to breathe when your ribs are not where they belong.
Of course.
So there was a whole, just a whole bunch of things happening. And so
Mm,
she suggested that I go on FMLA, which is what I did until we could figure it out. And that's when I went to a neurosurgeon, and he did the MRI and he told me, this is what's wrong with you. And I said, we had quite a conversation. I don't remember most of it. The only thing I remember is at the end of it, as we were getting to the end of it, he said, what are you so afraid of? I said, I'm afraid I won't be able to work. And he
right.
said, you won't.
Oh,
Don't
wow.
you'll never be able to do that again. This
Mm,
has changed. This will change your life forever. Once the pain starts, it never stops. You're
mm,
never going to get away from this. Some people
wow.
have it and they never hurt from it, but once it starts, and this is a neurosurgeon telling me that, he said the only options that there are to treat this are doing surgery to drain the syrinx to pull the fluid out of there,
Yep.
and put a stent in. But I'm not a candidate for that because where my tear is, he said, you would be, your limbs would all be paralyzed. And he
Be
said, I won't touch it.
paralyzed.
It's not worth it.
No.
So, and I have to agree.
Yep.
And then they said the other thing is pain management. So they started me on, the first thing they put me on was gabapentin, which,
Mhm.
um, by the time I got to, I have to do, I don't do drugs well to begin with.
Yeah.
So by the time I got to the recommended dose that you should take, I was having seizures. So I
Oh,
couldn't take
man.
that one. It was awful. There was like
Mm,
20 different, I mean, literally, I have a stack. There
I
was
believe
20
you.
different pain drugs that we tried. Lyrica worked the best for about 2 months, and then it gave me triple vision. So I had to quit taking that. And then the last one that I tried was Tigabin.
Okay.
And that one, my body revolted so bad. I
I've
had
never
fluids
heard of
coming
that
out of
one.
every opening that I have.
Wow.
It was horrifying. And I thought, you know what? I would rather live with the pain than die trying to get rid of it because I
Yeah.
thought I was going to die from that one. That one was bad. So then I sought out a naturopath,
Mm-hmm.
and I decided from here on out, I have to do natural stuff because my system, either the things that they gave me, the side effects were worse
Yeah.
than what I was already dealing with, or they didn't help at all. So there just was nothing that
It's
was working.
it's so often the case with that kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but that's, especially when you're sensitive and you're aware of your body as you are
Yeah.
and still are, it you can really feel these things having a ripple effect.
Oh, huge. Well, I mean, I knew as a teenager, I can't even take aspirin because
Right.
it would just knock me out. So, you know, anyhow, so
Yeah.
that was kind of where, so in
Okay.
2015, they
So
sent me
this
to,
so this was 5 years from 20, so it was 2010, you said, the accident.
mhm.
So this got you to about 5 years in.
Yeah, this was a whole bunch of stuff that they put me through. And then in 2015, they finally sent me to I had a a spine specialist that was
Mhm.
working with me. And they sent me to a multi-injury specialist because he kept telling them, you can't ignore this other thing that's going on back there. Even if you don't treat it, you can't act like it doesn't exist.
Okay.
But the multi-pain specialist told me just straightforward, he said, the problem for you, Darla, is that they did not treat your body as a whole. And because they didn't treat all of the injuries at one time and acknowledge all of them, your nervous system is now so messed up, it doesn't know how to respond anymore. Because
Right.
by that point, I was having new symptoms, and I'm talking painful symptoms, weird symptoms. Every couple of weeks, I was in a stage 3 of adrenal fatigue
Mm-hmm.
because it's really difficult on your body when you're dealing with constant pain.
It, it
And
it it wears you out
it's
completely.
exhausting.
Yes.
It
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the other thing at the very beginning that exists to this day is that I have to rest every day. And sometimes it can be anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours that I have to just lay down and just rest. Because if I don't, I get weird. And my husband will look at me and he can see it in my eyes first. He says, "You're getting tired, aren't you?" Yes, I'm getting tired.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
will say, so he says that if I push it, he says, I act like I'm drunk. I've never drank in my life, beyond, I
Oh,
mean, never been drunk. I've had,
yeah.
a glass of wine or something
You
like
weren't a
that.
bar goer in your youth.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
wasn't. Yeah, I know. He calls me June Cleaver. So, so jokingly, but
Uh,
anyway, so yeah, so I've had to rest ever since it began. So that was
you
the
know,
other thing that
you
was
know what's interesting
not
about
normal.
that, Darla, because this comes up a lot, even with Seth and I, when we're talking about just what's acceptable in our society for how much we work and push.
Yeah,
And I almost think that in an odd way, we're meant to rest
we are.
30 minutes to 2 hours a day.
Mhm.
The way in which we would talk about the siestas, in
Yeah,
more Latin cultures where you'd have your meal and then you'd have a rest, you'd have a nap.
yeah,
You don't, the shops all get closed until 4 in the afternoon and then they open later in the day.
yeah.
And while I know that one wants to be productive and not be in pain, isn't it interesting that we sometimes need more rest than we realize, but it takes some time. In your case, it's a little different because it was an accident and a physical
Right.
injury. But as you know, through many of your peers in Smart Body, Smart Mind, they pushed and pushed and pushed, got to that adrenal fatigue, and then their condition forced them to rest when they hadn't rested their entire life because they were in survival mode.
Yeah. Which
So
was me.
it,
I
many of
people
us.
used to tease me that I was the Energizer Bunny because I mean, I worked, I took care of things at home.
Mhm.
I had several volunteer things that I did.
Yeah.
I had a side business, a photography side business.
Wow.
I had a lot. But
Yeah.
to me, that was normal.
Yeah.
People would say I was a type A. No, I'm actually not. I'm type C. I'm compliant. So I learned to act like I was type A, but it's really not me. So burnout, I had went through burnout 2 or 3 times before this accident ever
Oh,
happened, where I just
interesting.
had to withdraw from people because it was too much. But
Mm,
I didn't connect any of that until I did the Smart Body, Smart Mind, and I started learning all kinds of things about myself and about our
right.
society and about how I was functioning and why I was having a hard time. And there's a lot that, the accident probably, I mean, I don't want to say it's a good thing that it happened, but
Mhm.
I've learned a lot
Yes, you have.
from it. I've learned a lot, and I've learning how to pace myself was really, really hard in the
Mhm.
beginning because
Mhm.
I would go places and then run out of energy and not be able to get home.
Yep.
I have to call my husband to come and get me, and then we'd have to go back later and get the car, or there would be people there that would have to follow me home to make sure I didn't have an accident so I could drive home. At church, I would go in and lay on the floor in the women's bathroom when I run out of energy until I had enough energy to get up and go out,
Back.
and it was horrifying. It was because I
Right.
couldn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how it all went together. And
Yeah.
there isn't anything out there really to learn about syringomyelia and how it affects people, particularly the traumatic one, because most people are born with it that have it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my my naturopath, who's also my chiropractor and does the physical therapy stuff on my back,
Mm-hmm.
probably knows my back better than anybody in the world, but
Yeah.
he has said it's probably the spot that tore was weakened when I was a kid,
Mm.
um, because my mother became physically abusive, and she
Mm.
always came from the back, grabbed you by
Mm.
the hair, and punched me in the back. So when I have that feeling of not, I know what that is, being punched in
Yeah.
the back so hard you can't breathe.
Oh,
I lived through several years of that.
of
Um,
trauma.
yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
trauma. So it weakened that spot. And so,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was just too much, one too many hits for it is basically what happened. Um,
Mm.
but my mom was schizophrenic, and she had
Mm-hmm.
multiple personalities.
Mm.
And one of her I kind of feel like I have to do a disclaimer here because one of
Sure.
her personalities really truly hated me and told me so on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So I know, um, the good part is, bringing it forward, is that
Yeah.
before she died of breast cancer in 2013, her mind was restored, and I got to meet the real person that my mom
Wow.
is. And I came to the recognition at that time, I'm a lot like her. And I think, the
Mm,
other parts of her that were split out
yeah.
hated the core person that she was. And that's why she did things to me she didn't do to anybody else, just me.
Yeah.
Um, and I know that because I have 4 siblings and we've talked, about stuff. But the cool part to me was seeing her whole when she finally got, her mind back, and I
That's
got
so
to have peace with
fascinating.
that. It is so, well, she went into a diabetic coma, and
Ah,
they thought she was going to die then. But when she came out of the coma, her mind was restored, which
it was,
they say it's a medical miracle. That's not normal. That's not,
no,
it is absolutely not normal.
it's almost as if something reset in her.
Yeah, that's
She,
exactly.
a bit of a spiritual, journey.
Mhm.
She went somewhere, came back and saw a clarity. When people talk about near-death experiences and they see the light, and when
Yeah,
they come back, they really are changed.
yeah.
That makes
That's
me
what
think of that.
well, I don't know if she had well, she did have a near-death experience and she came back changed. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's one part of the story that I know you had mentioned that there was early abuse, but I didn't know what it was. And that's so
Yeah.
interesting that that connects with the spinal trauma, the abuse in
Hmm.
that area.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, apparently from my dad has told me that the physical abuse for me began as an infant.
Yeah.
That he came home one day and he caught her throwing me against the wall.
Mm.
So I know that breaks my
Yeah.
heart, but I just can't imagine a mother doing that. But what's helpful for me is recognizing that she wasn't in her right mind, and I have seen her in her right mind. So now I know that's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a fact, because I
Mm-hmm.
had one friend who was a psychiatrist who worked for Seattle, and he
Mm-hmm.
was the one who decided who was capable of standing trial or not.
Oh,
And he talked to me just person to person. I was not a patient to him. He just simply, he told Ed Kelly, he was amazing. He said, Darla, you have to separate what she did from who she is. But I didn't know who she was. So I couldn't, that was really hard for me to do. And
yeah.
he told me you need to go through forgiveness therapy. And he gave me a specific book, Forgive to Live,
Mm,
which is where my journey first started with my mom,
right.
because I went through PTSD because I went through so much trauma with her
Yeah.
that I just blocked it.
Yeah.
I didn't remember anything until I was 2007 is when the memories started coming back
Okay.
about her.
Quite a
And
while after your childhood and younger adult
yeah.
years then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way, way after. And I don't, um, I know what triggered it. I don't need to go into all of that,
No.
but there was a trigger, and I started remembering things in my body, but not in my mind. And
Yep.
so I was on a mission. I knew I had been sexually abused, and I needed to know who and when and what happened in my head, because I thought I need to know this. I mean, I'd known that all my life. I knew that it had happened. I just didn't know when and where and who.
Right.
And so when I started that process, that it was challenging, to say the least. I
I'll bet.
really thought I was going to lose my mind for a while, and turned out it was my mother, which is pretty
Yep.
dramatic, which
Yep.
was hard on my marriage.
Yep.
Almost, I don't know how my husband, he loves me a lot. I don't know how he stuck with me through all of that, because that was harsh. But I
Mm-hmm.
had a really good therapist who specialized in sexual abuse. And so she helped me learn a lot of skills on how to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
But fast forward, um, it still wasn't enough to heal the soul. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
It healed my mind enough where I could say, this is, I understand now. And
Accept.
what I told Tom the other day is, what I have gotten from Smart Body, Smart Mind, that to me is worth everything I've had to go through. I feel whole, because it addresses it. It heals heart, mind, body, and soul. You know, the cognitive behavior therapies, they can't do that. They can help you with your mind and help you to learn how to control your emotions, but they don't heal your heart and soul. They don't do that. They can't. It's, you know, and just like what that multi-injury specialist told me, we are a whole human being.
Yeah.
You have to deal with the whole, any kind of trauma or thing that you've been through, and every kind of abuse, I don't care what it is, they all have the same basic healing process that needs to happen,
Yeah.
but it has to happen on every level because you're a whole human being. You're not dissected.
No. Well, and that's first of all, kudos to that specialist
Yeah.
because that's hopeful. You know, you hear so many horror stories about doctors who just look at one part, and I know some have to do that because of their specialty, but it's nice to know that there are those physicians, those specialists that
Yeah.
understand what you just said.
Yeah.
Um,
There are
and
very, very
they,
few though.
I know, and I hope
The
that
medical
we
world is not kind.
I know, and I hope that, you know, when we're far gone and others aren't having to have these conversations like we are, because it'll just be a known fact that you have to heal, as you just said, body, mind, soul, spirit, connection to the earth,
Yes.
connection to our ancestry, you
Yeah.
know,
All of it.
your poor mother, I have no doubt she had quite the childhood if that was how she was
Oh,
in
yeah.
her, of course, it's a given.
Well, and I also know part of it, because schizophrenia is a psychotic one, which means it comes from the inside. So part of it was how her DNA interacted.
Yep.
Because she's, as far as we know, the only person in her entire family who's ever had that particular illness. So it's
Mm.
just the way her DNA happened. And I know there were some specific experiences that she went through that probably impacted her
Of
a
course.
lot. I have a letter that she wrote to her mother where she recognized that she had a mental problem,
Mm.
and she was able to really spell out what she was feeling and dealing with. I mean, she was smart.
She was
My mom
intelligent
was
about it. Yeah.
borderline genius. She was
Yeah.
really smart. Um, Musically, she was a genius, literally. She sat down
Wow.
at 3 years old and just started playing the piano.
Oh,
She
wow.
was a beautiful person. It's just the mental illness stole so much from her because
Mm.
she couldn't piece it together.
Yeah.
You know, she
Yeah.
had literal different
People.
personalities that had
Yeah.
their own names,
Yeah.
but she was very good at hiding that from most people. And
Mm.
there's really only one person that I know of that she ever shared that with, the names of the different personalities. Her
Interesting.
children, I think we all knew that there was different things because of how she reacted at different times.
Mhm.
But as far as I know, only one person ever knew that the
All
actual,
of them.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if you heard, I'm not sure if I ever shared this in SBSM. I know I just shared it on an interview I did where I was on a panel with someone who had survived satanic ritual abuse, which is a whole other big topic, but often what occurs in that kind of abuse is multiples, dissociative identity disorder. And when I was a teenager, Darla, I went into the local library. I was in grade 11, and the
yeah,
library was across from the high school. And something just led me, talk about, just following whatever. And I found this
yeah.
book called Satan's Children. It's a terrible
Ooh,
title, but it was written by a psychiatrist who specialized in people who had multiple personality disorders as a result of intense abuse.
yeah,
And I read that book so young, and it was really interesting because nothing in my body ever said, this can't be possible. Everything knew this is possible.
yeah,
And recently I tried to find a copy of the book and I found a copy. It was like a
yeah,
used copy from Britain, got sent over. And I went on Amazon just to see what people were saying about this book. And it's amazing to me how many people commented about how I can't remember the exact words, but this is a hoax. These things don't exist. There's no such thing. This guy's just
ooh.
making money off of
Mm.
people. And I'm like, whoa.
No, it's
And
real.
it, but But for me, it's like, okay, that shows how different people see things. Whereas
Yeah.
I'm this, 16, 17-year-old girl who, yeah, was brought up in the medical world, but not talking about, I didn't learn about psychology or anything
Yeah.
like that. So when I hear stories like yours, where there's a family member or someone close to someone and they've had these multiples, it fascinates me how clever our system is
Yeah.
at surviving.
Yeah. Well, like for me, I've just blocked everything out.
Yeah,
Totally. Just never happened.
of
And
course.
my siblings will talk about some things that happened when we were kids, and some of them I still don't remember. It's like that just isn't in my brain anywhere.
No,
It's like
no,
my brain just said, nope,
don't want to see that.
nope, can't handle that one. That's too many. Not gonna go there.
Uh-uh.
But I did have, that's the other thing that I've gained from doing the Smart Body, Smart Mind is disassociation was very normal for me.
Of course.
Because that's normal for anyone who's been abused,
Mhm.
specifically sexual abuse. That's really
Yeah,
common.
yeah.
So for me, going in and out of emotions all the time, just blocking them out, and it's a very definite sense that I could tell when I was doing it because it was not like something that I chose. It was like you said, it's self-protection.
Survival.
It's survival. That's what the mind does in
Yeah.
order to be able to protect you so that you can survive. And my dad had a really hard time dealing with my mom's mental illness because it really came out when my third brother was born. She went
Mhm.
into a bad postpartum depression,
Mhm.
and that's when her mind just flipped. And so for the first 5 years, I actually had a mom. And so
Okay.
when her mind was healed, I knew, even though I couldn't remember, I did remember. My sense was, that's my mom. I know
Yeah,
who she is. That's
yeah,
my mom,
yeah.
and so, but he didn't handle it well. He became an alcoholic and had multiple affairs, and it wasn't a
Mm.
pretty thing. My childhood was
No,
pretty ugly. Then became the parent
of course you
and
did. Yeah,
took care of everybody else.
yeah.
And all of that kind of stuff that goes with that. But the
Mm.
interesting piece to me, people would say, um, but you seem so normal. People who didn't see me grow up, and it's like, but I am normal.
You are normal.
You live
Yeah,
through that and see
yeah,
what you do.
yeah.
Some people, well, actually, psychiatrists or the counselors and therapists that I've worked with have told me it's my faith that has saved me because I have a very positive attitude and I believe in a God that loves me,
Yeah.
and otherwise I would be an absolute disastrous mess. And I know that, but I've had times where I am, I'm not going to lie. I have, but, um, the cool part is and the reason why I'm bringing this up is the last 3 years of my dad's life,
Mm.
we went through this book called, Learning to Love Yourself.
Mhm.
And that's what set me up to recognize when I saw you, aha, this is my next step.
I
Not
see.
only is this going to help heal my nervous system, this is going to help me with what I need to do next. And I'm thankful that I had that with my dad because those last 3 years, he was the dad that I needed him to be. So
Mm.
that healed for me as well.
Lovely.
And not only that, but it was really, I guess, a miracle. I don't know how else to put it, that it was him because you were talking about the satanic abuse.
Satanic ritual abuse. Yeah.
Yeah, the ritual abuse. That is what they told me my healing journey was exactly identical to
Ah.
because he was so controlling when I was young.
Ah.
And because he had sole control over training me, and my mom gave him that when I remember the day that that happened, where he came home and something wasn't cleaned the way he wanted it. And she said, I didn't do it. He said, if you didn't, who did? And she said, I had Darla do it. And if you don't like it, you train her. And that's the way it was from then on.
Oh my
My mom
goodness.
really had nothing to do with me from then on. That it was all my dad. So
Okay.
he became, um, he was very, what's the word I want? Controlling doesn't really quite do it.
Tyrant, a bit of a tyrant, a bit of a,
Um, it was
authoritative.
very authoritative
Yeah.
and a lot of gaslighting. A
Yes.
lot of gaslighting. My emotions were not my own. I was not allowed to choose my own. I mean, I'm wearing this because this is me.
I love it. When we first turn, I'm like, are those rhinestones? That's so
Yes,
cool. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like bling
Yeah.
and I love purple. And
Yeah.
this is a light purple, but I colored in a coloring book with the color purple. And he threatened me that he would spank me if I ever used that color again.
Oh,
And I was being this, I'm a sensitive person, so I never did. And it wasn't until I was an adult where
yeah.
I realized it's okay to like different colors. And
It
that's part of
is.
why this art therapy is such a big deal to me to do for
Yes.
kids. Because for
Yes.
me, this is like passing on to them all of the healing that I have gained over the last, I've been doing some kind of healing process since I was in my mid 20s. So it's, been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And with Smart Body, Smart Mind, the pieces that come together with that is that Leora and I were talking about this in our last conversation. She
Yeah.
said, will I ever reach a point where I can feel safe? Because for those who have been through some kind of trauma or abuse and sometimes both,
Mhm.
you don't feel safe.
No.
You never feel safe.
No.
I have gained that. I feel one of my fabulous, most wonderful woohoo moments was when
Woo!
I realized I love me. I feel safe with me. I've learned how, and you were the one who taught me this in the beginning, when we were talking about the childhood traumas, when you have the developmental
Yes.
stuff and all of
Yes.
that, you were saying, when you have lived through really tough stuff, I'm here. And I learned, I used to have so much anxiety and so much fear of abandonment. And now that I have learned how through all of the lessons that you have given and the biological training, this is the one thing I've checked out other ones, that the one thing that you do different
Mm.
than everybody else, because there's a whole bunch of stuff out there right now about
Yes,
nervous
there
system
is.
rewire and all that now, but you do a whole package, whereas other people do pieces.
Mm.
Because that's what I'm saying about the wholeness of it. There's a wholeness, because if you don't understand the biology, there's still some fear in there. And
Mhm.
as you have explained and taught, and I have learned, and you keep learning, so you keep sharing. And another reason why I go through it every single time is you always tell something new because it's
Ah,
live.
I
When
know.
in your training, you do.
There's always new stories because
There's
my
always,
life is different.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so there's always more to learn. And
yeah,
I've loved it since you brought Seth on
yeah.
doing the Q&As, because I
Mhm.
have found, oh, that's a question I never even thought of. Yeah, how do you do that? What does that mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I loved the one where the two of you did it together, because you guys work really well together. But
We like each other. We seem to do well
yeah, you
together.
do. You're a good team. But a lot of the other ones out there, they give you hacks. And
Hmm.
if you don't understand what's going on behind that, it helps you for the moment, which is why I reached the point where I no longer want to do cognitive behavior therapy, because there is a limit on hacks.
Yeah,
And if you're not dealing with the root,
yeah.
then it's like putting a band-aid on. And
Mhm.
sooner or later, the band-aid comes off and you have to go through and do it over again.
Yeah.
And I just got so tired of telling my story. I don't have secrets anymore. I don't have any blocks anymore. All of that stuff's been done.
Hmm.
The only part of sharing my story that makes any sense to me now is that it can help somebody else,
Yeah.
because there's not really anything that I've been through that I need to share just to share it. I
No.
don't need to do that anymore. I'm in a different place. I feel pretty happy and content with myself, to be really honest.
I mean, if I feel that, I believe you.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned about feeling safe and feeling that for the first time, for those who have never experienced that, it can be so hard to grok
Yeah.
what that means.
You can't comprehend it.
You can't until it's there. And
Yeah.
for context, Darla, like we're talking in 2024, it's July. I think
Yes.
it's July. When did you begin SBSM? Just to give people an
Oh,
idea of the time And not in a way that's like, oh my goodness, why did it take you so long? But just it takes time
It does.
to regulate a system that had the level of abuse, psychological, emotional, sexual, physical,
Spiritual, all of it.
soul abuse,
Yeah.
right? And the accident
Yeah. On top of it. Yeah.
on top of that.
Well, in 2017, um, so I'd had 2 years from the time that the multi-injury specialist said that I needed that.
Because
So
he
I
said
had,
your nervous system, correct? He was
he
the
said,
one.
yeah, he specifically said, your nervous system is so messed up. It does not know how to, it's like having the foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. It does not know which one you want. And it literally cannot respond anymore.
Yeah.
So my system was going down, down, down. I was really in a heavy downward spiral by
Mm-hmm.
2017.
Mm-hmm.
Just new symptoms coming all the time, body organs starting to not function right. Just all kinds of stuff. I mean, a long list.
Yeah.
There's 4 pages of all the symptoms that I had because I pulled it up because that's when I
Wow.
started documenting.
Okay.
And then I found you the first 2 weeks in, I think it was August, or I think August is when you did it that year, right? I
I
think
can't
so.
remember.
I can't remember for sure, but I know it was in the fall. That much I
Okay.
remember positively.
Yeah.
In fall of 2017,
Mm.
um, you had a bunch of the free stuff on, and I watched some of that, and I said, this is what he said I needed. I'm
Mm.
gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I signed up. I'd listened to a few of your things first, and I thought this sounds like exactly what he was talking about because nobody knows how to do that.
No.
When he told Labor and Industries that their idea, you know what their idea of that was? Send me to a return to work program.
Oh no.
I know, which just up to
Uh,
that point,
yeah.
my legs were the only thing that worked right. And
Mm-hmm.
after they were done with me, not even that worked right. Then my
Yeah.
left leg had went totally numb, couldn't even move it.
I used to work in that kind of program when I was when I was an exercise therapist.
Yeah.
And I can hands down say it was the job I hated the most in my 20s.
Ugh.
I just, I dreaded it. I wanted to help, but I could see that I wasn't helping.
Mm-mm.
And I had no knowledge of trauma. I had no knowledge of the Feldenkrais work. I was just doing stretches and strengthening with people who were in so much pain. And I'm like, this isn't helping anybody.
It made me so much worse. I mean,
Yeah.
everything they did just made me worse.
Yeah.
And that spine specialist I told you about at that time, he just told me, he said, Darla, you got to get them out of your healthcare because they're going to kill you. They are already slowly killing you. And if you keep them in there, you will be dead.
Wow.
And so by the time I found SmartBody, SmartMind, I felt like I didn't have much time left.
Mm,
It was like, this is do it or die,
yeah.
literally.
Because your
And
organs were deteriorating.
yeah, they
Yeah.
weren't functioning right anymore. And
Yeah.
so in the first 2 weeks, the symptoms stopped, new ones. I didn't have any more new ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then that first round, I have to admit, I was always a good student in school. And I pushed myself to make sure I did every lesson,
Yeah.
listened to
Of
every
course.
training call. I pushed it. I really pushed it. But I
Yeah.
felt like this is my only job now is to try to heal. And I'm going to do it no matter what it takes. And so I know, but you keep saying, do it in your own time,
Yeah.
breathe,
Yeah.
take your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So the next second or the third one, I can't remember which one. The only thing I did was the kidney adrenal because when it connected for me that the kidney adrenal exercise
Yeah.
was the one that helps with the early development a lot.
Yeah.
To this very day, I do that one every day still.
Wow.
Every time I lay down, I've learned it well enough.
You can do it yourself.
I can do it myself
Of
now.
course you can. It's
I
great.
do it every time I lay down now. The first thing I say, okay, kidneys and adrenals, you can just relax, just drop.
Mm,
You're in a nice warm bath. It's going to be fine.
cool. Love it.
And yeah, so, and the other thing that I have really appreciated since Seth has came on, this is something I do that you don't teach, but works for me.
Mhm.
Is that I've learned enough of the different exercises and the pieces and the ones that really have a big impact for me that now I use those with Seth's music because he has
Yeah.
the healing music.
Yes.
And I have found, for me, that's a bigger impact.
Mhm.
I notice more happening for me, the sounds with that. And I love when he has said, you know, about sounds, how they impact us and stuff. I won't go into all
Yeah.
that. They can listen to him for that because I can't explain it. But what I can say is it works for
Yeah.
me. Like Leora, sounds are hard for her, so that will be
Yeah.
more difficult for her. But for
Yeah.
me, sounds really impact, especially music.
Yeah. Well, it focuses, and you're right. Everyone is different.
Yes.
And that's why there's structure, obviously, to Smart Body, Smart Mind, because if there wasn't
Yeah.
some structure, it would be all over the place.
Oh, yeah. You guys
And,
are very organized.
and the job of the student is to learn that structure. But like any good profession, once you know the structure, you can improvise.
And that's the point. It's the principles because you give the education and the
Mhm.
exercises. I wouldn't call them hacks. They're not hacks. What
No.
we learn is the principles. We learn the principles of how the body works
Hmm.
and the mind works with it,
Hmm.
and how to put those two things so that you're a whole being. So your whole entire being, heart, mind, body, and soul are all working together at the same time, not one here, you know, up, down, whatever, where it's all working together at the same time. And then we implement, like you were saying, how it works better for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Because we all have different learning styles. And that's
Exactly.
the thing that sets you apart is you don't just say, if you do this, this, and this, you know, this is going to work for you. No, you give us the principles
Yeah.
and then we figure out how to work in our own body with those. And like the Teleroka, I love that too, because I do that about once a month. And what I do with that one, when I'm listening to that, I just let my body do whatever it wants.
Hmm.
I don't have any plan. It's just whatever it feels like doing at the moment. And the last time I did that, well, in our last round of Smart Body, Smart Mind,
Which one was that again? You said,
the Teleroka, is that, am I
oh,
pronouncing it?
Seth's music. Yes, yes, yes,
Yes, and Seth's
yes.
music. So with that one, because he does the charka from top to bottom.
Yep.
So I just let my body do whatever it wants to do. And the last one, I went from really soft, gentle, like ballet movements to like punching in the air.
Yay.
I just- and it was, I remember I told Seth, I said, this was the weirdest one of them all because I went through every emotion that's possible.
That's so good.
I know. And it's just, that's what I love about it though, because you stress a lot, do it in your own time.
Hmm.
You know, go at your own pace, and learning how to do that has been imperative. I think
Yeah,
it's imperative for anybody who lives in our society, really,
100%.
because we are taught you have to do this, this, and this, and this amount of time. And, you know, all throughout school, you have all these
Hmm.
restrictions put around you all the time. And
Hmm.
there is no room for freedom of creativity and expression of just being who you are. And
I can't wait. I want to be one of your students in your art class because what you just shared there is essential for any therapist, healer, teacher, is if
yeah,
they haven't been able to go through that wide array of emotion and sensation that you just said, from doing soft, gentle ballet movements to like punch in the air and getting the anger out, when
yeah,
that shows up in your student, in the kids you're working with, if you can't match the energy that they might want to put out,
yeah.
it goes back to what you were talking about with coloring with purple. Like if a kid just
Mhm.
wants to color with black, great,
Let them do it.
do it.
Yeah,
What does that mean? Like, how do you need to express that? And there need that level of, it's really acceptance,
yeah, it is.
right?
It is. Well,
And yeah,
yeah, yeah. And the art therapy, they teach you what different colors and symbols and things like that can mean. Doesn't mean that
yes,
it does because everybody's different.
yes,
Like in our country, red often symbolizes love.
yeah,
In China, it represents death. So
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know, you have to understand it's very individualized. And
yeah.
that's how I feel about the Smart Body, Smart Mind, what it's been for me. And
Hmm.
the support
Yeah.
is stellar because everybody that works with you, your
Hmm.
whole entire team, all have that same attitude.
Yeah.
And they all have to go through, and I'm doing a commercial here at the moment. They have to
It's
go
okay.
through, they have to go through the whole training themselves
Yeah.
and do this for themselves before you allow them to work
Yeah.
with other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's highly important because if you haven't experienced it,
Hmm.
like you were just saying, working with
Hmm.
kids, how are you going to know?
Yeah.
How are you going to know?
Yeah.
This last round, what I have found with the Smart Body, Smart Mind, after we did our last round, is that's how I'm dealing with anger different. I'm dealing with
Mm,
people who are angry different.
of course.
And every time I learn something different, and a lot of the times I think it's important for people to understand you're not going to recognize what's going on inside of you right away because it's happening naturally.
Yeah.
You're not trying to force it. There's not somebody telling you, if you do this, this is going to happen, or creating a plan for you, like you need to, like they do in cognitive behavior, where you
Yes.
have to make your map of your life and tell your entire story and all that stuff. We don't have that. So
No.
the healing that happens just happens very smooth, gentle, naturally. And it's not until something else happens and you go, oh, I just
Yeah.
did that entirely different than what I used to do. I don't think about
Exactly.
that the same way.
Hmm.
I don't feel the same way. It's very subtle.
I'm
So,
glad you mentioned that because there is a um, this thought that to do work that's deep around our past traumas and abuses, that we need to remember all of them and write them all
mhm,
down. And as you know, there isn't one moment ever in the course where we say, tell us what your problems are or your traumas or your injuries. If someone wants to share, as you
yeah,
know, in a
uh,
forum, their history, their personal story, then we allow that 100%. We don't ask anybody to censor any detail. It's like
no,
as messy as it needs to be. Or if you never even want to tell us what your full name is, that's fine too.
yeah. That's why I came to you, because I love that. Because for me
Yeah.
in the beginning, I needed that. I
Hmm.
didn't trust doctors anymore.
No.
They had just hurt me and hurt me and hurt me, made things worse. And it's like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
For me, that sense of feeling like I was in control, I was
Hmm.
getting information and figuring out for myself how to apply that to myself. That was a game changer.
Yeah.
That's the only way I could have done it at that point because my trust level was way too low.
Uh, and that makes sense. That makes total sense. I also appreciate what you were saying too about there's no script, and
Mm,
some of your peers, and bless all of you listening to this who've wanted this list, want me to have a list of when you have this, do this exercise. When this is happening, do that exercise. Um, and I've really resisted that because then we
don't do
start to
it.
see it. I know.
Don't
Thanks
do
for strengthening that resolve.
Don't do it.
Don't do it, because what
No.
happens is the moment you make that list of when you feel what we would call anxiety, do this lesson. When you feel
Mhm.
pain, do this lesson. It's possible that that isn't what you need in that moment. And it's about me and the material and our support team helping you as the student learn to know what you need, and
Right.
of course choose what you want to within our curriculum. Or maybe you just need to go for a walk or have a
Yeah.
bath or call a friend or pet your dog or whatever. But it has that internal medicine comes from you. And as we know through the medical system, we've been told you only trust the white coat, you only trust the prescription pad, which sometimes it's important. Depending, if I got a
Yeah.
broken bone, I'm going to go and
You
get
need to.
a
Yeah.
surgeon to fix that. And that's happened to me many times.
Yeah.
But these chronic problems, that as you found with the spinal tear and all of this, there comes a point where you have to take the power back
Hmm.
and figure it out with, of course, support and help.
Yeah.
Um, your story is just incredible. I
Um,
want to ask one thing, because at the very
sure.
beginning you said, I'm still in pain.
Yep.
Talk to me about that, because that might be a piece that people are a bit confused about. It's like, well, why isn't the pain all gone? And do you want to just speak to that? Because nobody watching you right now, Darla, would think that you are in pain,
No.
because you can laugh, you can remember, we can connect.
and I'm not
just,
tired. If I
and
was
you're
tired,
not,
you would see a completely different person.
exactly. Your eyes aren't glazing over yet.
Yeah, not
So,
yet. No, I'm
so
okay.
how does that work in your life? Having worked with people who have had, say, amputations, burn victims who are still alive, obviously, like they live with a level of pain that is very difficult to describe.
Yeah.
So what is it like for you, and how have you found a peace with that, if you will?
I've learned how to manage it
Yeah.
better, like the pacing part. I know
Mm-hmm.
I have this much energy,
Mm-hmm.
and if I use this much, the next day I'm useless.
Right.
It's over. So I base everything I do on energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, honestly, this is one piece that the Smart Body, Smart Mind has given me that is beyond ability to describe, because
Mm-hmm.
my doctors are telling me the healing that they are seeing in my body, literally, is there's no explanation for it. There just isn't. And they are both telling me, my primary care and my naturopath are both telling me that they believe it's a result of doing this nervous system rewire work. The amount of time that I've put into it, and I'm very faithful with doing it, that that's the only thing that's helping me to improve, because I literally am having some actual physical healing that's happening, and
Mm-hmm.
my ribs are more stable now. They're
Wow.
not, they used to go out every day, several
Yeah.
times a day,
Yeah.
and now I am getting several days in a row without them. I still
Oh,
get
that's
exhausted because
sure.
the syrinx still stabs me, burns me, cuts
Yeah.
me, whatever you want to call it. It's still,
Mm-hmm.
all the time. It just,
Yeah.
and I have but the neuropathy is not as bad. One time we did the panel right that very week before, I finally
Yeah.
got feeling back
In your fingers.
in my
Yeah. I
fingers.
remember that.
Yeah. And the other day I did something and I felt that and I didn't even cut it.
Yeah.
So it's still, that's still improving. There's lots of little things that are improving.
Mm-hmm.
Like my naturopath, well, my doctors have both still told me, Darla, I can't release you to work because I wouldn't hire you myself because your body's not dependable. It's like you have energy for a while, but when it goes, it's just gone. And then there's
Right.
nobody in the world, you wouldn't last long enough for it would be useless. You would work
Right.
a week and it'd be over.
You'd be out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be out. So, the migraines are better. I'm not having them every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of it comes back to attitude for me, because in the beginning, I felt very sorry for myself and really angry. I had a
Sure.
lot of anger. It was like, I have lived a healthy life. I've tried my best to take care of myself since I
Yeah.
was a teenager and understood what that meant. I intended to have a very active life for as long as I live, and I
Yeah.
felt really sorry for myself.
Yeah.
And then one day I'm a spiritual person. So
Mhm.
one day I was yelling at God. I mean, literally yelling at him. I told him off,
I
just told
believe
him off
you.
what I thought of him. And it's like, how dare you? It's like,
Yeah.
if you want to kill me, just get it over with. Why are
Yeah.
you dragging it out?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
really ticked off. And afterwards, after I got all that out, I was amazed I was still alive, because I really thought he was going to strike me dead at the moment, because that's how I was raised. You don't get angry at God. Well, I did, and I survived it.
Oh, yep.
And I learned he's not afraid of my anger.
No.
God's not afraid of my anger at
No.
all, of any emotion. And instead, it made me closer to him, because then I realized, okay, you're not the God that I've been trained to believe that you are. This
No.
is not who you are. You're not watching for me to mess up.
No.
I felt like I was useless, like there was nothing that I could do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I've always been a very giving person, always trying to serve other people. And I went through a space and time, I couldn't hardly even brush my own hair. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was bad. It was really, really bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he, anyways, I just remember after I was done yelling at God and I opened my Bible, and the first thing I saw was, where were you when I created the sun and the moon and the stars? And I thought, touche, where was I?
Whoa.
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're God. I'm not. Who am I to question? I don't believe that God caused the accident,
Yeah.
but I do believe he's done a lot for me because of it.
Yeah.
I don't believe he causes any bad things. He hasn't, that's not him. That's not his
Mm-hmm.
role.
Mm-hmm.
He's He's not seeking to hurt us. He has good intentions. He's kind. He's gentle. All of these things is what I've learned about who he actually is. That's not how I was taught. I had more of a hellfire and brimstone view of God.
That's how most of us got it.
Yeah.
Original
Yeah.
sin and
Yeah.
everything about the body is bad and we're bad.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. I was a horrible person.
Yep.
I felt like I don't know what I did that was so bad. I was doing everything the way that you say you want it done. And this happened to me anyway. Why? And
Mhm.
then after that, I was like, well, why not? I've lived through a lot of stuff in my life. I am a survivor. I don't
Mhm.
think of myself as a victim. I've had a lot of hard things happen to me,
Yeah.
but I'm a survivor because I'm alive. That's all that qualify. That's all I have to qualify to be a
Yep.
survivor is to be alive. And I started thinking, and I started praying at that point, and I say this prayer every day, literally every day before I get out of bed. Show me what I can do for on this day to help this body to heal and to be a blessing to other people around me. What can I do? Because I've always been, I can do that kind of person. And I thought, I can't,
Mhm.
I'm not living that way. And then the next piece for me was I gave myself a time limit for feeling sorry for myself. It's like, this is hard. I've
Yeah.
lost a very big part of myself.
Yeah.
I felt more dead than alive for many
Yeah.
years. It's just been literally the last 6 months that I'm having more moments of feeling alert and
Mhm.
feeling like I got some life in me.
Yay.
Now what can I do? Another thing I can do to bless some other people, a little bit, just tiny pieces,
Mhm.
which is why I'm going to work with the school.
So
Just
good.
tiny pieces. That art therapy did help me. Um, and anyways, to me, that's a lot of it. Cause then it's like, okay, give yourself, in the beginning, I gave myself a half an hour, 30 minutes. Feel sorry for yourself, cry, scream, do whatever you
Mhm.
got to do, get it out, and
Yep.
then start thinking about what you're thankful for. What?
That's a good, I like that. I like
Yeah.
that because sometimes we force ourselves to not feel that grief and despair and
But
emotional
it's there.
pain. And it's there.
Yeah.
But we also don't want it to consume us to the point where we're in the victim identification mode, which I
Right.
have talked about before. You've probably heard me speak about my
Yes, I
mentor,
have.
specifically Peter Levine, saying out of all, I've sat and listened to him work with folks whose traumas I wouldn't even want to repeat. They were so
No, there's
heinous.
horrific. Yeah.
And you see these individuals come in and you can't imagine that they survived the history that he would read to us before they would come out.
Yeah.
And then he'd work with them and then they'd leave. And then inevitably, and I've heard him say this more than once, he said, that person will be fine because, and you want to know why, and he's kind of trying to get us to think, like, why, Peter? It's because they don't identify as a victim.
Right.
They were victimized, they were abused
Yes. Yes.
badly. No
Yes.
soul should go through that.
Nope.
That is accurate, but they do not see themselves as that victim.
Yeah.
And that is the part that I do find um, is so tough for some people to pull themselves out of. I think your faith um, is massive.
Yeah.
And I also want to say, because we have had some people who worry that I'm going to bring spiritual work into SBSM because they have a specific faith that doesn't allow them to, say, chant or focus on energy meridians and those sorts of
Mhm.
things. But we never touch faith or spirit elements directly in SBSM.
Mm-mm.
But I have seen, and you've maybe seen this in some of your peers, they start to say, wow, I'm like getting into my biology and I'm feeling more spiritual without being spiritual.
Exactly. That's what's happened for me because, I have learned to know God. The gentle part of God, when it really connected for me, was doing the bell hand.
Ah,
Because it's such a gentle touch.
yeah,
And I literally felt the energy. And I know that I'm doing, but I don't feel like we're ever alone. I don't feel like I'm ever alone
yeah,
anymore. I feel like God was right there with me and he was saying, this is how I love you. Very
that's beautiful.
soft and
Soft.
gentle. It scared me, to be honest. At first, it was kind of scary, but then as
Yeah.
it sunk in and it's sunk in more and more and more,
Mhm.
with doing different things, yeah, it has totally changed my perception of how God connects with me, because I have a different connection with myself. And I can't say this for everybody else, but for me,
Mhm.
being able to feel a connection for myself and feel like I can trust myself to be there for me,
Mhm.
that I know that I can trust God to be there
Mhm.
for me, because I
Mhm.
believe, I've always believed, even when the accident first happened, that he was going to heal me. I didn't know how, I didn't know when. Part of my anger in the beginning was it didn't happen fast enough.
Sure.
But I feel like at this point, there's lots of tiny little miracles that happen, because like a doctor telling you, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't be able to do this. Your ribs shouldn't be stabilizing because it tore all the ligaments and everything through here. That's why they wouldn't,
Right.
and the muscle is constantly being irritated from the
Right.
nerves.
Right.
The fact that it's doing some of that is a direct result of the nervous system work, because your
Mhm.
nervous system, as you obviously know, controls everything.
Everything.
So the more your nervous system gets online, the more everything else starts to
Yeah.
try to get online, and your body wants to heal. I
It
mean,
wants it
that's
wants
how
it.
we were designed.
Exactly.
It wants to do that. It just needs us to learn how to work with it.
Mhm.
I really feel like that's the principles that you teach. And you don't talk about God, you don't talk about all of that. But personally, you could.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you could just say, look, this is how God sees you. This is how
Yeah.
God loves you. This is how he created you.
Mhm.
And this is why this works.
Mhm.
And
Agreed. And I think that what you said about the bell hand lesson and that brought you into that space.
yeah,
It's fascinating because Dr. Feldenkrais, Moshe, was deeply spiritual. Um,
yeah,
and yet he didn't talk about it to the same, he did
mm,
his work, he did his nervous system work.
yeah,
But the lessons with the hand and the slowing down, it is setting a tone, and you know this because you've heard the lesson many, many times. But for those who are
yeah,
like, what the heck's the bell hand? It's a
yeah,
very classic Feldenkraisian lesson that tonifies the whole nervous system to slow down and be in flow.
yeah,
There's some other lessons with the hand that he based on fluid dynamics because he was a physicist, and fluid is flow,
yes,
right? There's flow everywhere. If we want to look at it from a
yeah,
sine wave quantum perspective, the
right,
reason we know distant prayer and prayer works is those intentions are going out,
right.
right?
Yep. It's the
And
energy. It's the
it's
positive energy.
exactly. So
Yeah,
no, it's I love hearing all the different ways that people enliven and enlighten to their soul and connection to if
yeah,
nature is their God, or if another spiritual person is their God, or if they have many gods,
yeah,
or if it's within them, right? And
yeah,
it's just whatever works for a person so that they can keep going and pursuing their health is the key.
right.
It's the key. Darla, we've been talking for a while.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to share that you haven't, that's top of mind, or something that's just that you really want to transmit that you haven't yet before we close
The,
up for this episode?
the number one thing that I would want people to get from what I am sharing is that it doesn't really matter what's happened to you.
Mhm.
There's hope. There is hope, and you got to hang on to the hope above and beyond all things. And whatever that means for you, wherever you find encouragement, wherever you find your um, sense of comfort and peace,
Mhm.
that's what you have to do. Um, but learning to care about you, and I've learned that from you. Literally,
Mhm.
that's not something I was ever taught. I was never taught
Yeah.
self-care. I've
Yeah.
learned all of that from SmartBody, SmartMind, because you have to be compassionate and gentle and kind to yourself in your thoughts, in your speech, in how you behave, doing little things for yourself, because that's where your safety comes from.
Mm.
That's how I learned to feel safe in myself. Was my life was not consistent. There was no consistency. I still find it difficult to be consistent, to be
Sure.
honest, because I never had that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but doing just the little things, don't make it big. It doesn't have to be big. It's like my friend has cancer down the street
Mm,
and he's having a hard time getting around. And I told him, just take 5 minutes. If you can just do 5 minutes to just walk from one side of the house to the other side of the house,
yeah.
make little, and I learned that from you.
Hmm.
Do little things, just a little bit here and a little bit there. And you grow your capacity. And as your capacity grows, then so
Yes.
does your endurance. And so does your ability to be able to do more. If you had asked me to do this a couple of years ago, I don't think I could have done it. Emotionally, I could not have handled
Yeah.
sharing
No,
everything I've shared today.
you're
I
doing
couldn't have
great.
done that. But
I
see,
just
and that's
remembered
why I
something.
keep doing it, because
Yeah.
you keep, every time you learn more, every day you learn more.
It builds and builds. Is
It
it,
builds.
you also, I think, mentioned that your bone density has improved.
It has. There's
Yes.
literal physical things in my body that
Yeah.
are healing.
Yeah.
Um, it's the last bone density I had 2 years ago. The bone density had improved because I got osteoporosis from doing all the steroids. So
Right.
all the different medical things, procedures that they
Mm,
were doing just literally made everything worse for
worse.
me.
Yeah.
Literally. So yeah, that
Yeah.
has improved. I'm sleeping more now.
Yeah.
Originally, by the time when I first found you, I was only sleeping like an hour at a time.
Oh,
Now I'm averaging 4 to 5 hours,
great.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
Um, I don't have the ribs aren't rotating as much. My muscle spasms are not as bad. I still have them. It's not gone. So you were
Mm-hmm.
talking about the pain. The difference is the pain's not as intense unless
Mm-hmm.
I do something I shouldn't do.
Yeah.
If I push myself too hard, so you have to learn your own body.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to befriend your own body, learn what it needs. Even with diet, there's things that if I eat too much sugar, I can guarantee that nerve system is going to just get
Flare.
really upset with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just have to learn your own body,
Yeah.
what it can handle, what it can't
Yeah.
handle, and just kind of,
Mm.
but don't lose hope. That's the number one thing that I think, learning how to do the giving myself at the time limit, feel sorry for yourself this much time. I don't give myself more than 5 minutes. I can have 5 minutes on
Great.
those days where I feel like I've regressed and I'm
Yeah.
really tired of this and I don't want to do it no more. I'm tired
Mm.
of feeling the pain. I've had it.
Yep.
I give
Yep.
myself 5 minutes to say all of that. And then it's like, okay, what do you have to be thankful for? Number one, you can still walk, you can still talk, you can still see, you can still hear, you can still wipe your own hiney, you can
Yep.
still feed yourself.
Yep.
I mean, reading some of the things in the syringomyelia group, a lot of people who have this,
They
their
can't.
prognosis is bad. It's
Yeah.
really, they
Yeah.
can't they have no bladder, bowel control. I mean,
Yeah.
just it goes on and on and on and on. So you just have to look for whatever you can find and say, I'm
Mm-hmm.
thankful for this.
Mm-hmm.
And another big piece for me personally, that I don't know that this is something that I figured out on my own, but I have
Mm.
since learned that it really helps other people too.
Yeah.
Look for whatever you can find that's happened from what's happened to you that you would not have learned otherwise. What's a
Mm.
positive that you've gotten? Like for me, having the car accident when it happened, my daughter had twins. And right at about the time where I could no longer work, it allowed me to be able to help her with them. I
With
took a
the
nap when they took a nap.
right.
I couldn't do much else, but I could
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
and what a
Yeah.
benefit for me to be able to connect with my grandkids in that way. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
Isn't that interesting?
it is to me. It's like there's look for the silver lining,
Yeah.
the old saying, but I think
Yeah.
that makes the difference. That's what really makes the difference. It's like Lenore and I were talking.
Mhm.
Maybe we're just stubborn. I'm determined. I don't think of it as my dad used to tell me I was stubborn and bossy when I was a kid, but now I think, and my siblings tell me that too. But what I have learned is no, what I am is I'm determined. I am determined to live my best
Yeah.
life, and
Yeah.
I will figure out whatever I have to figure out to do that. And it doesn't mean I'm always going to get it right. Doesn't
Mhm.
mean I'm not going to have pain, none of that stuff. But I'm still going to enjoy whatever I can as much as long as I can.
Here,
Bottom line.
here. we'll keep that force. I'm going to call it a positive force
Yeah.
going forward.
And I send that out to everybody who's listening. If you were able to listen to this whole thing, I feel that for you.
Yes. Would you mind ending with the prayer that you say in the morning? It was so
You bet.
lovely, and I want to make sure we capture that. And let's just end
Oh,
with that because it
okay.
really touched me, and I think that could be a good for some grounding point to remember their need, their potential and to see things in a different light.
Yeah, you bet. Okay. Well, I call him Papa God because to me, he's my daddy. He's my real daddy. And
All good. All
so,
good.
okay. So, Papa God in heaven, I just ask that you will show us what we can do for this day that will help us to heal heart, mind, body, and soul, and what we can do to be a blessing to others around us. And I thank you for that. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Darla.
Thanks, Irene.
Thanks everyone for watching. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.